Hello and welcome to another video from Minus Touch Toys, Games, Collectibles. And today we've got something rare and unusual. We are looking at the 1964 release and the 1965 release of the first Doctor Who hardback book, novel book, which was Doctor Who in an Exciting Adventure with the Daleks, which was based on the very first Dalek serial, which was shown on TV in 1963, and it was called, the serial was known as the Daleks, and it was basically the very first Dalek story, and it was what launched Dalek Mania. So in 64, they decided to do a novel of it. And the one on the left hand side in the pink cover is the original 1964 release. That is the first edition. And on the right hand side you've got a later version, which is a 1965 release. But basically they're exactly the same books. They just released them with a different colour cover, and I'm assuming that's due just because it was a reissue rather than an original first release. Okay, so let's take a look at these books front and back. So this is the front of each book, and on the left hand side we're looking at the pink one first, and it says Doctor Who by David Whitaker, based on the BBC television serial by Terry Nation. And there you can see an image of the Doctor at the Dalek City, and it's got In an Exciting Adventure with the Daleks, and obviously that's the first Doctor as portrayed by William Hartnell. And on the right hand side you've got exactly the same cover, but just in the grey rather than the pink. So it's exactly the same again, Doctor Who by David Whitaker, based on the BBC television serial by Terry Nation, In an Exciting Adventure with the Daleks. Okay, so that is the front cover of both. I'm just going to turn the books around to the back now, and let's have a look at what's printed on the back of both of them. Okay, so I spun them round, and once again the back side is exactly the same as each other. So the pink one on the left hand side says, "You've seen the wonders of television, now read how it works." This is Television by Richard Carrickford. Is written in clear non-technical terms and describes the many different activities which takes place in the studios before a program can reach your screens. The author, who was wide experience of TV writing and producing, outlines such mysteries as synchronization, sound control, vision mixing and telerecording, as well as the duties of floor manager, set designer and director. Not at least valuable is a glossary of television terms. New edition, and that's 758 times 10 inch, illustrated 10 and 6 net, and that's also a book by Frederick Muller Limited, as is these. And the grey one on the right hand side basically says exactly the same. And again, you got the Frederick Muller Limited sign at the very bottom, the logo, and their name at the bottom. Okay, so that's the back of the books. Now let's just have a look at the sides and let's see if they're exactly the same. I believe they probably are. Yep, so we've got David Whitaker at the top, Doctor Who, based on the BBC television serial by Terry Nation, and at the very bottom you've got Muller. Okay, so that is each of the two Dalek books. Now, let's open them up and see if they're exactly the same on the inside as well. Okay, so I started with the 1964, the pink one, and I've opened the front cover, and it says, Doctor Who in an Exciting Adventure with the Daleks. A thick fog and a girl in distress are just the things that Ian Chesterton needs to escape from a life of dull routine. He has no idea that this is merely a prelude to an adventure quite beyond any normal concept of the word. On that Barnes Common on a foggy autumn night is the last view of Earth he may ever have. Both he and the girl he tries to help, Barbara Wright, are transported to a distant planet named Skaro by a mysterious old man known to them as the Doctor. With his granddaughter Susan, the Doctor sets them down in a world all but destroyed by atomic warfare. The only survivors being a peace-loving and cultured people called the Thals, and their bitter enemies, the Daleks, horribly mutated both in mind and body. Thrust into constant danger, his courage and determination tested almost beyond endurance, Ian is forced to struggle against alien creatures and superior enemies with no other weapons than surprise and ingenuity. The rewards of victory are left for Ian and his new friends, but life where? Can the Doctor return him and Barbara to Earth again? Question mark. And the price at the bottom is 12 and 6 net. And if you open this up, this particular book was awarded to somebody at Highfield County Secondary School. And the prize was awarded to a David Kirkley for Form 2C on the 28th of the 1st, 1965. And it's signed by the headmaster. Looks like F. Welling. Okay, so that's the first page. Let's move on to the second page. And it just says Doctor Who in exciting adventure with the Daleks. And then we have David Whitaker, Doctor Who in an exciting adventure with the Daleks, based on the BBC television serial by Terry Nation, by arrangement with the BBC, illustrated by Arnold Squatsman. And then you've got the Frederick Muller Limited at the bottom. And this says, first published in Great Britain, 1964, by Frederick Muller Limited, printed and bound by Cox and Wyman Limited, London, Fakenham, Reading. And text of book, copyright David Whitaker and Terry Nation, 1964. Illustrations, copyright Frederick Muller Limited, 1964. Doctor Who series, British Broadcasting Company, 1963. And the contents. A meeting on the Common, prisoners in space, the dead planet, the power of the Daleks, escape into danger, they will survive, the late of mutations, the last desperate try, the end of power, and a new life. So interesting that the story starts from the very beginning. So it doesn't continue from the TV series. It's a standalone book. And it is where Ian Chesterton somehow rescues Barbara Wright. I think she's been in a car crash. Let's just read the first paragraph. I stopped the car at least and let the fog close in around me. I knew I was somewhere on Barnes Common, and I had a suspicious idea it was most deserted part as well. A warm fire and a supper my landlord would have waiting for me seemed so far away as New Zealand. I wondered how long it would take me to walk home to Paddington, and the possible answer didn't do anything to cheer me up. A fitting end to an impossible day, I thought savagely. For a start, before breakfast, I'd torn my best sports jacket on the loose screw on the door in my room. It didn't help that I'd been putting off tightening it for a few weeks, so I had nobody to blame but myself. Then later, after I'd driven all the way to Reigate for a job I was after as assistant research scientist at Donnaby's, the big rocket component firm, I found that a nephew of one of the directors had got the post, and I made the journey for nothing. Now, the fog and the prospects of a long, weary walk, I looked at my watch, delaying the decision as long as possible, nearly 9 o'clock. Just as the second hand completed its minute, I heard the sound of running footsteps. Probably somebody is lost I told myself, welcome for a delay from the final decision of begin walking. Suddenly, into the pallid glow of my headlights, a girl appeared. She stopped and I saw her hands moving slightly, and I could see her mouth opening to speak. I tore open the door and ran to her, catching her before she fell to the road. She hadn't completely fainted, and I could just make out the name she was saying, Susan. As I lifted her up and put her in the front seat, then her head rolled back on the seat rest, and she passed out altogether. She was in her early 20s, I guessed, and she had been one of those deceptive sorts of faces, attractive yet with strong character. Her clothes were covered in mud, and her stockings hung in ribbons around her legs. There was a big rip on her jacket of her suit on her shoulder, and I could see the blood spreading over the material. I opened the bonnet and dipped my handkerchief in the radiator. This put an end to any idea of walking, I told myself. The cut on her shoulder didn't look too good and might even need some stitches in it. I went back to her, wringing out the handkerchief, wondering why she didn't have a handbag. Had somebody attacked her and stolen it? The obvious solution didn't occur to me. She began to move her head a little as I bathed her forehead. Her lips quivered slightly. Susan, Susan. All I could think about was how strange it was that she would want to tell me her name. And I suppose I was so preoccupied with this line of thought that I was almost startled when she opened her eyes and looked at me. There was a pause of a second or two, and then I laid the handkerchief across her forehead. Rest quietly for a minute. You'll be all right. Susan, yes, I know. You started to tell me your name. She shook her head. I rescued the handkerchief and started to refold it. No, Susan is on the road, she said. She was in the car with me. I'll go and have a look in a moment. No, please. I heard the urgency in her voice. I nodded. All right, it's all straight ahead. I'll come with you. I must. She's hurt. What happened? The answer came to me almost as soon as I asked. Car crash. Yes, thank heavens you pulled up. You'd have driven right into it. She started to get out of the car. "You've hurt your shoulder, you know." "It's all right." I helped her out and pretending I hadn't noticed the agony on her face as she moved her injured shoulder. "You better show me, but say if you don't feel up to it." We began to walk along the road, and we had taken only a few steps before the fog swallowed up the headlights of my car, and fog passed in around us. I said, "How badly hurt is she?" "I don't know. There was a lot of blood on her face. It was a big lorry, an army one, I think." We groped on way forward, itching our way, but still I nearly tipped over the shattered wing of the lorry that had been wrenched away from the main body. I guided the girl around it, and broken glass began to crunch under our feet. It was a strange, eerie sound in the silence of the night. The outline of the lorry appeared, and we circled around it cautiously. It was laying on one side, and sprawled half in and half out of one of the driving cabin windows was the upper half of the army corporal. I climbed up as far as I could on the twisted metal, and it looked as if the man had been hurled sideways. At the moment of impact, the glass of the window shattered, but holding him from being thrown out into the roadway. I stared at him for a second or two, and then stepped back in the road. "Is he all right? Hurt badly or what?" I looked at her, wondering what state she was in to hear what I was about to say. The pause seemed to be significant for her. She turned her head and peered through the idling mist at the body. "He's dead, I'm afraid so." The fog was lingering. The fog was beginning to line the back of my throat, and for the first time I became aware of the strong smell of petrol. One of the lorry's headlights still glared out into the road, and I thought the less chance the petrol had, the better. I felt a sudden anxiety, but there would be a short circuit and the whole wreckage would explode in our faces. I climbed up again. Okay, I'm going to leave it there because it goes on for quite a while before they find Susan, and they head back to the TARDIS, and then they go on their adventure with the Doctor to the dead planet. Okay, so right at the end there, 156 pages. You can see an image there of Barbara and Susan. And I just read that last paragraph. "It seems to me," he said gently, "that the young lady hasn't made up her mind." I waited. Barbara said, "Can we stay with the Doctor, Ian?" I saw Susan and her grandfather smile at each other. I got up and walked over to Barbara and took her hand lightly. I felt her fingers pressing into mine, asking for comfort, affection. Affection. I still didn't dare hope it might be love. Only time could tell. I turned and faced the Doctor with a smile. "We'll stay with you," I said. And that is the close of the book. So that gives you that whole story, front and back. We'll very, very quickly skip through it. So that is the 1964 version. So let's just pop that to the corner, and let's see if the 1965 version is any different. So, okay, so right away I can see that this is a former library book, and the page has been... Yeah, the page has been cut. The cover has been cut on the inside. You've got a library ticket in there, which is 7064. And it's got Sainsbury's Library Hire for Boys. And there's a stamp there, which has obviously come off as well. It says Doctor Who, an exciting adventure with the Daleks. David Whitaker, Doctor Who, an exciting adventure with Dalek, based on the BBC television serial by Terry Nation, by arrangement with the BBC, illustrated by Arnold Squatsman and Frederick Muller Limited, London. So far it's all the same. It's going to be slightly different here. It says first published in Great Britain, 1964, by Frederick Muller Limited, printed and bound by Cox Wyman Limited, London, and Fakenham and Reading. Text of book, copyright David Whitaker and Terry Nation, 1964. Illustrations, copyright Frederick Muller Limited, 1964. Doctor Who series, British Broadcasting Company, 1963. So second impression was 1965, and this is the third impression, 1965. And we've got the same contents: meeting in the common, prisoners in space, the dead planet, the power of the Daleks, escape into danger, they will the will to survive, the lake of mutations, the last desperate in try, the end of power, and a new life. Okay, and there the story starts, and it's exactly the same again. And there we are. So that first chapter goes on quite a ways, which hence the reason why I didn't want to continue reading it. But there we go. And there's an image of Susan and the Doctor at the city, the old city, the Dalek city. Okay, so that is the story. Let's just zoom again to the end and see if it's exactly, yeah, it's exactly the same. Same images of Barbara and Susan. And it seems to me, he said gently, the young lady hasn't made up her mind. I waited. Barbara said, can we stay with the doctor, Ian? I saw Susan and her grandfather smile at each other. I got up and walked over to Barbara and took her hand lightly. I felt her fingers pressing into mine, asking for comfort, affection. I still didn't dare hope it might be love. Only time would tell. I turned and faced the doctor with a smile. We'll stay with you, I said. So that is that's interesting. So we've got St. Julian's Library High for Boys, and there's their St. Julian's Library sticker. And again, the cover's been trimmed back, but it is wrapped in plastic, this one, so it's kept the cover in good condition, but obviously the cover has been trimmed by the library. So how well did these books do back in the 60s? Well, they obviously done very well. The first edition, the pink one, obviously sold out very quickly, and they've done 2 more runs, as you can see from the second book. Yeah, the second impression and the third impression. So they've obviously done a big volume of these books that went out to people in the 60s. Obviously, the episodes of the Doctor Who had sparked off Dalek Mania. And everyone got in on the action, and obviously David Whitaker wrote the story based on that first Dalek serial. Obviously it's not based on Doctor Who's Cold Hill School, the first episode. It starts obviously, as we read, where Ian meets Barbara in an accident. So there we are. So yes, they've done very well, but sadly not many of these books have survived the test of time. We're talking now 60 years on for the pink one, and 59 years for the grey one. So finding these books now in any condition is very, very difficult. Finding the pink one in the condition it's in, which is excellent for its age, is almost impossible. And finding the grey one, again, in the condition it's in, apart from having the library trimming back the cover, the actual book is in fantastic condition. So finding them in these conditions is very difficult. But as usual, we at Minus Touch have managed to find these few, and they are currently available to purchase on the Minus Touch website, which you can get to quite simply by clicking the link below. It will take you straight to the website, where you'll be able to find these and many other vintage Doctor Who items, and many other vintage toys, games and collectibles. Come to that. There's over 10,000 products currently available on the website for you to view and purchase at your leisure. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button, because we're uploading videos for every new item that goes into the website. There will be something for everybody, and I am absolutely positive that you're not going to want to miss this, because we literally have thousands and thousands of new items which we're shooting videos for and uploading on a daily basis. So if there is something in particular you are looking for, something old that you've never been able to find, something quirky that you might want to buy for a friend, or maybe just something from your childhood that you'd like to own again to help you recuperate those long-lost childhood memories, well, stay tuned, keep watching, because you never know, the next item we upload could be that item you've been looking for. And believe me when I say we have got some amazing items coming through soon. So our team has been working tirelessly behind the scenes to get the items ready for sale and ready to be uploaded onto the for video shooting. And believe me when I say you will not be disappointed with what we've got coming through. So stay tuned, keep watching, because the items are absolutely awesome that's coming. Okay, that is it for me on this particular items. I do hope you've enjoyed this very short video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you again soon.